back, everybody. Let's see. Yeah, I'm seeing our session room populate here. People are jumping in. Thanks so much for joining us today for the Road to LND 2023. I don't know if any of you were here yesterday. That was a fantastic day. All three sessions were absolutely amazing. I had so much fun, and I'd even noticed that like Connie Malamed was stuck in her table for a whole other hour after her session completed yesterday, and all the other tables were populating nicely as well. So thanks everybody for participating in all of that. Before we get started, I wanted to just mention again, thanks to our sponsors. You've got Learning Camel, Scissortail Creative Services, ID Lance, and then of course TPLD, Teaching a Path to LND, who are also manning some tables in the lounge area. So please feel free and visit them. And then we also have Joelle and Jennifer are going to have tables as well today. So make sure you look for them in the lounge area too. They have some fantastic topics, and you can see if you go into the reception area, you'll see sort of a schedule for what that looks like for today. I wanted also to remind you, all the recordings from yesterday are available in this interface, so you can go back and check out the recordings if you'd like. If you didn't catch them yesterday, I highly recommend taking a look at them. All three were absolutely fantastic and super helpful. And let's see, I think that's it. I also see that a lot of folks are joining TLDC and joining with the membership. If you go to thetldc.com, you can find more information about that. The membership just gets you more access to events like this. We have some member-only events that we have planned for throughout the year, and it also just supports me just continuing to do this stuff because we got to keep the lights on. And with that, we're just going to get into our first session of the day with Heidi Ranganathan. Heidi's going to be talking about translating teacher to ID terminology. Heidi is an instructional designer with a small team, specializes in the alignment of organizational needs with learning objectives, and partners with stakeholders and subject matter experts to achieve the greatest organizational impact. Heidi pivoted from bilingual classroom teacher to corporate instructional designer in 2021, then was promoted to a manager in 2022. And I love that. That's fairly recent. And so I love that you're here, sharing now, Heidi. And I love this statement in her bio about that she shares. A career transition is possible. And remember that you are the hero of your own story. You can read all the books, listen to many podcasts, and experiment with various authoring tools. But in the end, it is how you take action, reflect, and keep moving forward to support your career transition. And even me, myself, being in this industry for as long as I have, I totally agree with that. So that's great. I'm going to go ahead and post Heidi's LinkedIn URL in the chat for any of you that want to connect with her. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and let Heidi take it away.
What an intro. Thank you so much, Luis, and to TLDC for inviting me to speak at this event. I see many of you popping up in the chat right now. Some of you were connected on LinkedIn. It is awesome to see you again in this event and or to meet new connections. So thank you for joining, whether you're on your planning break, you're catching the replay, or you have a day off. Thank you so much. It means a lot. And know that us who have already pivoted from teaching into instructional designer L&D, we know what it's like. And it's an emotional journey and it's hard, but you can totally do this. And we're rooting for you along the way. So let's get into our session, translating teacher to ID terminology. Right now, I just want you to go ahead and think a day in the life. It could be before the bell rings, what you do during your instructional plan, what you do during your lunch break. Take 30 seconds. What are all the tasks that you complete at some part of your day? Just a little bit of think time. What do you do in your day? All right, you probably have a list of at least 15 different things that you complete before the students come into your classroom every day. That can be something such as lesson planning, your events, planning for evaluation. What kind of assessments are you going to be doing? It can be planning for upcoming parent teacher conferences. What sort of report card comments are coming? Maybe a student had a behavior problem and you need to communicate to your administration and to the parents back home. Maybe you're involved on so many curriculum teams with your grade level planning, a professional learning community, talking with people from your district who are organizing and piloting a new curriculum. It can be farther to organizing a new curriculum or a new unit lesson map, in addition to classroom management, what's happening within your classroom. All of these skills that teachers execute and plan for on a daily basis are translatable and applicable in a learning and development role. It just looks differently and sounds differently. For example, let's translate some of these into L&D. So for example, planning or lesson planning, curriculum design, that can be informed as instructional design. Going into evaluation, assessments, in L&D terms, that can be evaluation and performance metrics. Talking to parents, leadership, your district administrators, those are your stakeholders in your students' education. Working on different teams, PLCs, grade level, cross-functional teams is what it can be called within L&D. Mapping new curriculum, planning new plans, aligning your lessons to state standards. That's all forms of project management. And lastly, classroom management. When's an appropriate time to go to the bathroom? How do you organize how students turn in their papers, their folders, etc., etc.? That's also formed as stakeholder management. So inside of the chat, let me know which area of L&D career interests you. There are so many different careers within L&D. L&D is kind of like an umbrella term. So in teacher language, that's like somebody saying they're interested in education. Us as teachers will be like, oh, you want to be a teacher? Okay, but what kind of teacher? Are you a first grade teacher, a special ed teacher? Do you teach 7th and 8th grade math? But it even gets more niche down to that. So not only are you a 4th grade teacher, you might have specializations or endorsements in math, in reading, in special education, bilingual, ELL. There's so many different ways on how we niche down within education that the same applies to L&D. L&D is an umbrella term, and they niche down into different areas. So looking in the chat, we have a lot of folks interested in instructional design, learning experience design, e-learning development, writing content creation or facilitation, data analytics. Okay. Data administrator, tech and business. Okay, so we're kind of hitting a little bit of different areas of L&D. Awesome. Thank you for sharing. So in translating your teacher language to language in instructional design, or L&D, I have a 3-part framework. First is to be clear. Number 2 is to connect. And 3 is to communicate. All right. Step 1, I'm making it clear. Clear on your future career. As I mentioned, L&D is a huge umbrella term, just like education or teacher. We can niche down by saying 3rd grade teacher, special ed teacher, a 7th and 8th grade math teacher with an endorsement in English language learning. There's ways that we can niche down within L&D. So it's very important to get clear on what is that future career that you want. Because the way you're going to translate your resume or translate the language that you have is going to depend on the nuances of that niche. So how can we do that? First, I highly recommend that you make a list and compare. I learned this from another one of the speakers and one of my mentors, and now really good friends, Heidi Kirby, that she recommends, and I now follow this practice too, is to make a list of what are things that you really, really love about your current role in the classroom. Next, what is a list of things that, like, if you never had to do this again in the day in your life, you would be the happiest person in the whole entire world. And then a third list about a dream. Like, what is a day in the life of your dream job that you're envisioning? Then go ahead and take inventory about what those items look like, and taking a hint at it. What can it look like within those different job descriptions? So for example, if your worst part of the day is actually delivering the instruction and teaching the lesson, then maybe being a facilitator is not the right career path for you. Or maybe if you absolutely love analyzing data, you like preparing for IEP or 504 meetings, you like aligning notes or the specific lessons to the state standards, maybe being a data administrator or an LMS administrator would be a great role for you. Or lastly, what about instructional design? So if your favorite part of teaching is creating the curriculum, how are you going to design and relay this objective to this particular set of learners, and how are you going to measure their understanding along the way, but then not actually deliver that message and facilitate it? Maybe instructional design or learning experience design is the best path for you. So you're probably thinking, Heidi, whoa, whoa, whoa. You just mentioned so many different careers within L&D. I don't even know where to start or what these specific items do. So I suggest you do some research, but where can you look? Taking a look at job descriptions. What's the language that they're using within the job descriptions? And does that sound appealing to you? Taking a look in LinkedIn learnings or your LinkedIn connections, having coffee chats with others in your network or on LinkedIn or mentors in order to hear what is a day in the life that they're currently doing, and is it interesting to you? And lastly, some sort of professional reading. What is reading that's happening within that field? So step one, becoming clear on which role within L&D you want to pivot to so you can translate your items as necessary. Which brings us to step two, connecting, putting them together, translating that teacher to future career lingo. Just like we tell our students, we need to make connections between like text to text, text to self, or text to real life. Same thing here. We need to help connect the dots from what is our current career to what do we want a future career to do. Why? Because when a hiring manager is looking at your resume or your portfolio, they might say, oh, they just lesson plan for students and make lessons engaging. Oh, those are like third graders. I don't know if that can translate to adults. Or for example, a teacher, what do? They like collect papers, they have it go in some like red folder, they hands it back out to students, and the way they grade is it's up to them. Well, that's a form of project management. Is We just need to put the language in those terms that they understand to help see that connection. So how can this happen? First is creating a personal understanding of what does that look like, and this takes time. I highly recommend that you grab a notebook, a sticky note, a open up your apps note on your phone, and as you're reading job descriptions or hearing people in the industry talk, start to make those connections for yourself. For example, if you read in a job description that people are working with cross-functional teams to collaborate, what does a cross functional team look like in your current day to day role? A cross functional team might be working with different grade levels on a current unit. It might be working with members of different schools, but within the same district that are working on piloting a new curriculum. That's working with a cross functional team, and you have that experience. It's just translating what that experience looks like to your new career. So then, once you have developed your personal understanding, it makes a better idea on how you can practice using that language for yourself and then using it on your resume. When I was pivoting, my friends and family thought I was crazy because I was constantly talking to myself in addition to my morning commute from home to school. And what I would do is one of the exercises would be practice narrating what I do for my language arts block, but I want to describe it only using instructional design terms. So, for example, it could be I wrote down the lesson objective and I needed to ensure my students were doing a thumbs up, thumbs down knowledge check, not formative assessment, in order to ensure their understanding related to the organization's key performance indicators in relation to state standards. So let's take a look at what this looks like. Here's a freebie. Here is a jump start to get you started. https:/tinyurl.com/tldc translate. And I will go ahead and keep this up for a moment. And here's a list of what I started to compile when I was pivoting, and what does some of that teacher to ID language look like? Because I know sometimes when you're doing your resume, you're like, oh, what could this be? Here's a place in order for you to get started. Thanks, Marika, for putting that link in the chat as well. People helping people. I love it. So again, it's just this brainstorm start of the list of what instructional designers do and what that could look like about what teachers do. Let's dive into some of those examples about what that could look like. For example, a teacher might say on their resume or what they do a day in the life in the classroom is that a teacher assessed student performance through formative assessment, quizzing, and unit assessment. In instructional design terms, that could be referred to as assess learner performance, because not students, we are working with adult learners mostly. So assess learner performance with knowledge checks and on-the-job performance. A separate example could be a teacher. They schedule and they lead grade level team meetings and with administration for a new curriculum pilot. I feel like teachers are always piloting new curriculum because it's gonna be like the newest, latest, and greatest thing, right? What could that be like in instruction? All the laughs are coming in. Yes, it is true. Like seriously, every other year I was in the classrooms like, and this is the new thing we're doing. Anyways, if you've ever piloted a curriculum, in instructional design terms, that could be like schedule and lead meetings to collaborate with stakeholders, so administration, different grade level team members, leadership, and subject matter experts to align on your training deliverables. Oh, I see your comments coming in saying this is so helpful. This is a fantastic resource, and it's exactly the type of document that you've been searching everywhere. I love it. See, this is why us as a community of teachers is so important and so powerful to have within your network, because we understand what it is, we get it, and we're rooting for you in whatever that career pivot looks like, or staying in the classroom, whatever decides you for you, we're here for it. So I'm so glad, and you all just made my day, so thank you. What's another example? This is a long one, but it can break it down. So a teacher, what does a teacher do? They assess student needs from one-on-one interviews, from benchmark assessments and teacher observation, to create learning targets aligned to differentiated instruction, to school improvement plans and state standards for in-person, remote, and hybrid learning environments. Because if you were a teacher during COVID, you had to do all that for so many different sessions. And bless you. Instructional design, what could that look like? Assess audience learning needs from subject matter expert interviews and data sets to define specific learning objectives aligned to learner needs, organizational requirements, and key performance indicators for synchronous and asynchronous learning environments. Okay, I know I've just rambled off a lot of examples, and you're probably feeling like Phoebe and Friends, like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So much stuff, so many terms, I don't know what to do. Or how would I translate this from my resume? We will have at the end of the session, when I'm wrapping up, we're going to have some time to brainstorm and ideate together, either in the chat or through the Q&A, about what are some of your answers for us to come together. I'm seeing a lot of applause. You are so welcome. You are so welcome. Let's go through another example. If you're interested in project management, for example, what could that look like from what you do in the classroom as a teacher to what those same action items look like within project management? So a teacher could create a curriculum map outlining units of instruction, and you break down the units into individual lesson plans. In project management terms, that translated could be create a scope statement outlining the high-level work items and then decomposing the scope to create the work breakdown structure. Another example is a teacher might ensure all lessons in the unit are taught prior to the assessment. It's kind of a good thing to do, right? You don't want students saying, this wasn't on the test, miss. Yeah, I've done it too. Or you do everybody omit number 3. It's like, stop, ignore number 3. So sorry. Like, I forgot to delete it out. Yes. What could that look like within project management? Controlled scope throughout the duration of the project, aligned to the project charter. So, step 2, connect. What are actions that you do within your current classroom role? And connect to what does that sound like, look like? What is that called in the environment or the career that you want to pivot to? A sidebar before we move to the next step is it is so important that you don't lie on your resume, on your LinkedIn, in interviews. For example, if you say you're an instructional designer at a 4th grade classroom, what happens if the hiring manager calls up your previous district? You're like, hi, I'm asking about Jane Doe, who was the 4th grade instructional designer for this school. They're gonna be like, I'm sorry, we don't have instructional design here. You can have you could have practiced or executed instructional design in an educational setting, but your title was instructor, educator, teacher, team leader. So don't lie, but we can still translate in order to have those language flow. All right, step 3. It should be 3, not 2. Whoops, my bad. Communicate. So we've become clear on where we're going, where we're going to translate our items to. Number 2, we're connecting. We're making those connections between what I do in the classroom to what is that called in my future career. Now we need to communicate and share that language out. So it's being consistent on your resume, your cover letter, LinkedIn, your portfolio, in your interviews, that when you're talking, and this is when practice comes in play, that when you're talking with these items, you will be able to say with ease that you're no longer lesson planning for your students, you are creating instruction for your learners. So you're automatically doing that career, that translating pivot. So you're consistent across documents and you're showing, hey, I did my homework. I did my research. I am serious and I am committed to this new career because all of this experience that I have, in addition to the upskilling that I have done that's required for my new career, but you do have relevant experience that is able to translate to that new career. So the moment you've all been waiting for, I know. Let's workshop your lingo. So either inside of the chat or in the Q&A, take a look. what are some terms or resume items that you are like, ooh, how would I say this for my career? So to participate, please enter what is the career you want to pivot to and what are you trying to translate. So as those are coming in the chat, taking a look, some aha moments. People know how to alter their resume and skills without sounding teachery. Yes, that is the whole point of this. When you come to an interview, we want you to sound confident and ready. That's ready to go. Awesome. Okay. Comments are coming in. Again, if you want to workshop your lingo, please put number one, what career are you interested in pivoting to in L&D? And two, what lingo do you want to translate? Okay, Merica, you're looking for instructional designer and mentoring students. So in your mentoring students, that could be such as um, coaching, coaching, coaching and collaboration with learners is what that could be. Pivoting ID and trying to translate IEP skills. Oh, that is huge. Okay. If you're translating IEP skills, so you're constantly differentiating instruction and aligning to your students' needs, preparing for IEP meetings um, with your team, with your administration, prepping for meetings with parents. What could that be like? That in instructional design terms, that could be um, creating content relatable for learner specific needs, analyzing learner data, and creating roadmaps or creating instructional plans to close the business gap. Another one, instructional designer, summative assessment, pre-assessment. Ooh, this is a thing. I didn't know it. I'm like, in e-learnings, I've seen people do like little formative assessments. Guess what? At least in my company where we work, we don't call them formative assessments. Those are knowledge checks. So anytime you do thumbs up, thumbs down, or rate yourself from 5 to 1, or a quick quiz or an exit slip, those are knowledge checks, where then your final quiz might be a formative assessment or an assessment that we have. Okay, another one. Frequent one-on-one check-ins with students. Oh yes, I remember those friends. That can be chatting or monitoring. One-on-one check-ins. Monitoring and communication frequency as needed according to stakeholder involvement. Hey, another item. It's a team leader. You facilitated weekly meetings. You developed an agenda. That's project management for instructional design. So that can be leading stakeholder meetings in order to align on common objectives or instructional objectives to create an outline for deliverables. Okay, another idea, designed and delivered professional development for faculty. The training was on creating data-driven instruction. Yes. So not only in this were you serving as an instructional designer, but also facilitating that training. So you could have developed, created, choose your verb of choice, learning aligned to adult learning principles, because you probably taught it in a way You presented the information in a way to adults than you would have to your kindergartners. So you're adapting for your audience, your adult learning audience. And with relevant connections, knowledge checks, etc., to bridge the gap, to um, share together, to see how I'm kind of just like going through my brain. Everything doesn't come out perfect at once, but going through these lists can help you bring all those items together. To increase learner achievement in data driven principles. Okay. Another idea, instructional design. How would I translate that percent of my students meet or exceeded learning targets for a unit? So in your resume bullet point, again, blank percentage of learners met or exceeded the KPIs, key performance indicators, or showed immeasurable growth in their KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. Another one, technology. What are some tech tools that I use with learners and some that I taught learners how to use? This is a great question. Okay. Teachers use tech tools all the time, whether it be Canva, Go Noodle. See, I'm out of the classroom for 2 years and it's like, and what are these tech tools? Using tech tools or using tools that you use to develop or create your instruction are most likely authoring tools. So for example, how many of you use Google Slides in order to create your PowerPoint for the day, or use PowerPoint in order to create your instructional design, your instructional slides? Those are uses of an authoring tool. I use Microsoft PowerPoint, Word, and Excel on a weekly basis as an authoring tool for my instruction in the corporate world. If you upload those then to a Google Classroom or what's it called? Canvas. That's uploading to an LMS, a learning management system. So yes, you do have experience managing curriculum within a LMS in an educational setting. Are the terms synchronous and asynchronous terms used outside of education? Within my current field and work, yes. Whenever we're doing in-person instruction, we will use the term synchronous. And when it's like a blended approach, for example, students or the learners go to class or they have the lesson, they do an e-learning, and then they come back for a debrief, asynchronous. So yes. But again, it's all contextual. It depends. But one-on-one check-ins, could that be a form of feedback you're trying to get? Not sure if feedback is something you can share on a resume. Yes, that's a term of feedback. It's a term of form of your knowledge check or assessment that you're getting from your student in order to see if they've learned something, or to make sure that you know that they are on the learning path to where they need to go, or a one-on-one check-in with a teammate to ensure that you are aligned on delivering the same objective in order to meet X Common Core state standard. Another example. What is KPI? Great question. KPI is a key performance indicator. So in education terms, you know how every year your school, your district, they come out with a SIP, a school improvement plan. And on your school improvement plan, they have all these action items for what we need to do to raise the state test scores in reading and in math, and then sometimes a SEL, a social emotional learning goal. Yeah? Okay. What they're doing in order to measure, and they take that information from standardized assessments or from the reading levels from Fontes and Pinnell. And for that metric, we're looking for those key performance indicators. In the business, your key performance indicators are what do you need to do, or what actions need to take place in order to meet that overlying business objective. So KPI, key performance indicator. How is LMS in education translating over? So as I mentioned, an LMS in education, for example, if you use Google Classroom, if you use Canvas, those are all learning management systems that you do manage by uploading assessments, by putting in student grades, by sending work back to students. That's managing an LMS within an educational setting. Um, oh, okay. Flipgrid, Google surveys. Yes. Is it possible to go backwards where we translate Common ID terminology over to teaching terminology? Yes, totally. Okay. For example, what's some jargon that I spit off every day at work? A SME, a subject matter expert. A subject matter expert in an educational setting. That might be a teacher who's taught this curriculum before. It might be a community member that's coming in to help give a presentation on items in the community for a community helpers unit. That community member is a subject matter expert in what they do for the community. Another item could be cross-functional teams. In the education setting, that can be when an elementary team, there's one person from first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade, all come together and they're working on creating one type of initiative or item in order to support school moving forward. That is a cross-functional team. Another item could be deliverables. Oh, we love deliverables. Deliverables are what's the product that's being done. So whether that's a slide deck, it could be your learning solution, your job aid or handout. Let's break that down. So a job aid in education terms, that can be like an anchor chart. What are your students going to reference on a daily basis in order to help them remember steps to solving a word problem? That's a job aid. Another example would be like a slide deck. We don't use PowerPoint slides. It's typically slide deck. Though that's your instruction or your facilitator deck that you have beforehand. If you're creating new, if you have a, what else we use on a daily basis? Knowledge checks. Knowledge checks are your formative assessment. Thumbs up, thumbs down, write on a sticky note, exit ticket, formative assessments, knowledge checks. Rubrics can be rubrics, or in my organization, when we're looking at rubrics, we typically refer to them as a competency matrix. So we still have the levels like 1, 2, 3, 4, knowing, learning, doing, and teaching, but we refer to it as a competency matrix. And oftentimes that competency matrix is then linked to the participants' yearly evaluation or how they're improving in that way. Okay. This is helpful. Awesome. It's a sweet spot. Joelle, she's going to be leading a table later, and she says, this is a great question to ask in your coffee chats if you're going ahead and talking. I totally agree. What are some common acronyms that are used within your job? Exactly. Newsletter rubrics. Being a union rep for your site. Yes. So you're a representative of your organization, and you go to stakeholder meetings in order to relay information and to align on common goals. What are some of the same terms across ID and across teaching? There's a lot, but it's also not a lot at the same time. So for example, some terms that are used the same. Learning assessments that you need to create. some sort of instructional plan. You might call that curriculum planning, but again, it's or lesson planning, but again, it's some type of instructional plan that you're creating. Evaluation. Project-based learning. Yes. So project-based learning, that is a type of instruction that you're using to create. So that can be using engaging instructional methodologies appropriate for learners. And again, we can get more into like that. Everything's not going to have an exact and that's what you translate it to. But again, if you're stuck to an item, think about it's not just that term. What do you do, or what's all encompassing of that term? So maybe describe what do you do within project-based learning, and that can help give you ideas or inspiration of how you can pivot that language or knowledge to communicate it to that new lingo. Ooh, good question. What would a needs analysis be in teacher terms? Okay. You are setting up for a new unit and you give a pre-assessment in order to see what do your learners know, what do they not know. You might take a look at their previous test scores, or how did they do on this one specific standard, and where do the students need to go. You might have a one-on-one informational interview with a student and realize that they have some knowledge gaps. What you're doing during the needs analysis is you're trying to pinpoint where are the problem or problems, where do you need to go, and how can your instruction bridge that gap within a needs analysis using best practice theory, etc., moving forward like that. Coordinating field trips or overnight college visits, science camp. Yeah, those are a lot of items. Think about what items what happens in order for you to coordinate that overnight college visit. So it can be leading and scheduling touch points, creating checklists for participants and stakeholder alignment, arranging transportation, collecting the requirements that are needed for an actionable delivery or actionable success of that item. How would an ROI KPI or meeting quota look like in teaching? Return on investment. Okay, you've launched a new curriculum. You look at your test scores from last year on this math curriculum for this one standard, and its student achievement was 60%. You launch your new math curriculum, and there's you look at that same standard, and with this new math curriculum, student achievement went up to 90%. That is your return on investment that increase in student achievement or student growth. What would a KPI look like in teaching? A key performance indicator. So that's kind of like your standards or the rubrics that you have that you're creating. Let's say for a rubric, what does a student need to be able to do at this standard, at this level, in order to have a true mastery of understanding? Those items of what they need to do to show that level of understanding are those key performance indicators in order to achieve that alignment. What are touch points? Touch points. Those are check-ins. It can be one-on-ones. It could be small group instruction. It could be a exit slip. A touch point is literally what are points of contact that you have either between your project team, another developer that you're working with. Touch points are opportunities in order to align on your deliverables, instruction, etc. Progress reports, data analytics. You're taking a look at data reports. You're looking at spreadsheets from learning management systems, but it's not just looking at the report, it's what do you do with the report. So think about what you do with the report, and that might serve as inspiration. How does mentoring and providing support to other teachers translate? You're able to coach, mentor, peer support. Coaching and mentoring support to other teachers. Yeah, I'd say peer support. Peer-to-peer learning. Yeah. Okay, we're at 11:45. Thank you so much for all your questions that were coming in. That was a lot of fun. And you could see me thinking on the spot. So again, when approaching your materials, in order to translate your teaching resume, first become clear. Where do you want to go? That's going to help niche down on, am I going to use an instructional design term? Am I going to use a project management term? Am I going to use something for a learning management system? It's also going to help focus your research on who you can connect with, what job description to look for. And as you're going through reading job descriptions, take a look and be like, oh, try to develop those connections for yourself. They're talking about aligning objectives or deliverables. What do you do during your day that could be that, and make those connections for yourself. Step 2 is connecting. Like I said, making that connection first personally, because it's so hard, friends. Yes, it's hard because you're used to talking about your students in your classroom environment and positive rapport and SEL and ELL, and you do important things. But in order to show that you're ready and you're able to make that pivot and prove to others that you have the skills and you don't just color pictures all day, what does those terms in the environment that you want to go for? And then lastly, 3, communicate. So across your interviews, resume, LinkedIn, your conversations, using that language of the career you want to go towards in order to help that transition. Let's see. Okay, so some of you are saying thank you. Oh, you are so welcome. Heading out to rewrite your entire resume right now. I felt that to a T. Yes, felt that to a T. So I will stay on for as much longer as we have to answer any questions that you have. But if you need to pop off, thank you so much for joining today. It's so special that we're able to engage in the chat, or you're popping in, or even catching the replay. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you to Luis and TDLC for inviting me to speak. It was an amazing experience to give back to the teacher community. Thanks to all the conference sponsors for making this happen. And thanks to you. Remember that you are your own secret sauce. There's a lot of chatter on LinkedIn right now. There's not one program, one book, one podcast that is like the end all be all holy grail. Even what I'm saying is not the end all be all. It's my opinion or what has worked for me or people that I know of. So then with that, remember you are your own secret weapon, secret sauce, and you can make it happen. Happy to connect with you on LinkedIn, to problem solve, or to chat with any of these ideas. Sometimes it's nice to just have an ideation partner, because I am rooting for you. So thank you so much.
Hey Heidi, that was wonderful. Workshopping that lingo. That's impressive because you've been in ID for 3 years.
Yep.
That was amazing. That was really, really good stuff. How
Thank
about
you.
we answer just this one last question before I close it out? Is that
Sure.
okay?
Absolutely.
So you can see that there. I have it on the screen. Should we put down specific learning theories used in lesson planning on resume, or is that a given? This one's from Tamar, I believe.
Oh, I see it. Okay. Specific learning theories. This little sidebar, but remember your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn profile, and your interview, they all work together in your portfolio. One is not a one-stop shop of everything Heidi Ranganathan, instructional designer. So, for example, on your resume, you might be able to say that you've incorporated adult learning theories in your deliverables or aligned to instruction. So, in your portfolio, show that you know how to apply those adult learning theories. Call one out and specifically say, this is what I looked, this is how I applied it. And then in your interview, talk about it. How did you apply that adult learning theory? It's not just about knowing it, it's what's your application like and how can you explain that's what that looks like.
Wow, fantastic. All right. Thank you so much. All right, everybody, I'm going to go ahead and end the session. Don't forget, make use of those tables out in the lounge area. They're absolutely fantastic. TPLD should be there. I'm not sure if Jennifer or Joelle will be there. But check it out, get some more help. And with that, we've got Sarah coming back at 10 a.m. Pacific time, 1 p.m. Eastern. And you'll want to join us for that one because she's going to be talking a little bit more about just beyond the LMS. And there is a whole lot there. So hopefully we'll see you then. All right. Bye, everybody.